A sitting duck. Yep, that's exactly what I feel like with Donald Trump and Elon Musk in charge and watching everything that they are tearing down. I feel like a sitting duck. I feel like a target. Here's the latest. The agency that keeps watch over our nuclear weapons, the stockpile, make sure everything is safe and sound, make sure that when we need them, they can get to where they need to be. Elon Musk fired thousands of those employees. And he fired thousands of those employees not knowing that this is what they do. NPR is reporting scenes of confusion and chaos unfolded over the last 2 days as the civilian agency that oversees the nation's nuclear weapons stockpile as the Trump administration's mass firings were carried out before being paused on Friday. So they went in with their machete and started chopping off heads. Didn't know who the people were whose heads they were chopping off. And then when they found out how grave of a mistake it was for them to be firing these people, then they paused the firings. This account of firings at the National Nuclear Security Administration is based on interviews with several current and former employees who asked to remain anonymous, fearing retribution from the Trump administration. Because, of course, they do dirty shit. They do wrong shit. They do corrupt shit. They do illegal shit. And when people speak out on it, they have to do it anonymously, because for speaking truth to what it is that they're doing, they could be retaliated against under this administration. Officials were given hours to fire hundreds of employees, and workers were shut out of emails as termination notices arrived. The terminations were part of a broader group of dismissals at the Department of Energy, where reportedly more than 1,000 federal workers were terminated. It was all a result of Elon Musk's Doge initiative to slash the federal workforce and what Musk and President Trump characterized as excessive government spending. And I must remind you, I have to remind you, excessive government spending that equals firing hundreds and thousands of employees is a part of the Project 2025 plan from the Heritage Foundation that Donald Trump lied and told everyone that he knew nothing about. The NNSA is a semi-autonomous agency with the Department of Energy that oversees the U.S. stockpile of thousands of nuclear weapons. Despite having the words national and security in its title, it was not getting an exemption for national security. Managers at the agency were told last Friday, according to the employee at the NNSA who asked not to be named, fearing retribution from the Trump administration. Just days before, officials in leadership had scrambled to write descriptions for the roughly 300 probationary employees at the agency who had joined the federal workforce less than 2 years ago. So the first to be let go are the last that were hired. Y'all know, last hired, first fired. Managers were given just 200 characters to explain why the jobs these workers did mattered. It was a tall order for the relatively obscure civilian agency that conducts a wide variety of nuclear security missions, including servicing the nation's nuclear weapons when they're not on missiles and bombers, and making extensive safety and security upgrades of the warheads. Some workers were responsible for making sure emergency response plans were in place at sites like a giant facility in Texas where thousands of dismantled warheads are stored. Others work to prevent terrorists and rogue nations from acquiring weapons-grade plutonium or uranium. Many had Q clearances, the highest level security clearance at the Department of Energy. Reminder, Doge, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump, they didn't know this. So they just started cutting off heads. Yeah, this is how they're doing things. They're not going to these departments and researching and getting an idea of who does what and what they're responsible for and why. No, they see a department. They have a total number of employees for that department, and they just start cutting off heads based on the number. Remember, the number in Project 2025 was to be rid of 50,000 federal employees. That was the number. The Department of Energy's press office did not respond to repeated requests by NPR for comment. That's because their hands are tied. They have been silenced by Doge and Donald Trump. In the final days leading up to the firings, managers drew up lists of essential workers and pleaded to keep them. In the end, it didn't matter. On Thursday, officials were told that the vast majority of the exemptions they had asked for were denied by the Trump administration. Multiple current and former employees at the agency told NPR that scores of people were notified verbally that they were fired. Many had to clear out their desks on the spot. Quote, "It broke my heart," says one employee who was among those who left the agency's Washington, D.C. headquarters. And that's a direct quote, end quote. But what followed was even more confusing. Employees were told they would receive a letter confirming their termination. Some did. A letter seen by NPR came late at night, and minutes later, their work email ceased to function. Per OPM, that's the Office of Personnel Management instructions, DOE finds that your further employment would not be in the public interest. This is the email that they got. It read in part. The text matched other letters seen by NPR that were sent to employees throughout the Department of Energy. The NNSA termination letter did not appear to make any specific reference to the highly classified nuclear mission conducted by the agency, but others at the agency who were told they were terminated never received such notification. Amid the confusion, employees reached by NPR on Friday were unsure whether they still worked at the agency. Quote, "Nobody knows if they're fired or not," end quote. 2 employees still had work laptops and equipment. The laptops did not contain any classified information. But clearly, if it did, it didn't matter to Donald Trump or to Doge if those laptops did have classified information. On Friday, an employee still at NNSA told NPR that the firings are now paused, in part because of the chaotic way in which they unfolded. Another employee had been contacted and told that their termination had been rescinded, but some worried that the damage had already been done. Nuclear security is highly specialized, high-pressure work, but it's not particularly well paid, one employee told NPR. Given what's unfolded over the last 24 hours, quote, "Why would anybody want to take these jobs?" End quote. Yep, I feel like a sitting duck, unprotected. And if you don't feel the same way, something is wrong with you. I'll see y'all later.